Now, let's go to chapter 7. We will have a look on chapter 7 today. And chapter 7 deals with population of Ethiopia and Horn. In here, we'll try to see what is meant by population distribution, population data, uses and sources, and so on and so forth will be discussed under this chapter. For any development project, it is a must that we need to know the population of a given country. Hence, regular and reliable population data are vital for effective socio-economic development planning and administration. If you don't know the population of a given country, it would be very difficult to have an effective socio-economic development. Therefore, it becomes inescapable to have population information as demography influence production, distribution, consumption, defense and administrative services at any administrative or natural unit considerably. Now, there are three conventional sources of obtaining population data. How are we to obtain population data? What are the mechanisms by which a given country could know the population of that specific country? So, the methods of obtaining data could be one, census. Census is the total process of collecting, compiling, and publishing demographic, economic, and social data pertaining at a specific time to all persons in a defined territory. So in census, we will have a count of the population. So this will help us for any economic development, and we will have this data of a specific country. Hence, what are its major characteristics? Meaning that, what are the characteristics of census? One, universality, meaning the inclusion of all persons in a given area during the count. So all people have to be counted. Two, periodicity. Census undertaking at regular time intervals with reference to a defined point of time, usually 10 years and 5 years. So, in the case of Ethiopia, population census will take place every 10 years. 3. Simultaneity. Undertaking census in a very limited time duration called the census day and night. So simultaneously, we need to make a count of the population. For government sponsorship being an expensive endeavor and population or publication of that given population. Hence, there has to be a government sponsorship because it is very expensive. All the people, all the personnel, the materials that are needed for the census has to be covered. The second is sample survey. This is a method in which a defined population sample is collected with the view that information acquired would represent the entire population. So sampling is nothing. It means that taking some portion of the total population, so on the basis of that, you will arrive at a generalization. This method is advantageous over census as count costs can be greatly reduced. If you are to make a sample survey, since you are not to count the entire population, it minimizes cost, so it is advantageous. Data from most censuses and sample surveys include geographic location, age, sex, marital status, married or unmarried, citizenship, and place of birth, relationship to the head of household, religion, educational characteristics, occupation, fertility, income, language, ethnic characteristics, disabilities, and migration. All these are to be included when we are to conduct population count. The third one is vital registration. Vital registration is systematic of continuous, permanent, compulsory and legal recording of the occurrence and the characteristics of vital events like births, deaths, marriages, divorces, and adoption. So, most of the developed countries will use the vital registration. Hence, they know the total population of the country because there is a count on birth, on death, on marriage, divorce, and that of adoption. By doing this, it would be very simple to know the population of a given country. Now let us see population dynamics. Here are elements like fertility, mortality, and migration. Fertility refers to birth, mortality refers to death, and that of the third one is migration, movement of people from one area to the other. The population of any particular region or country grows or declines as a result of the combined effects of the three demographic variables. So population is related with that of fertility, mortality, and migration. If we do have a clear image on fertility, mortality, and migration, well, then it will be very simple to know the population of a given country. Based on the projected data from CSA means Central Statistics Authority, Ethiopia has an estimated 2019 population of 112 million, which ranks 12th in the world, and the current growth rate is about 2.6% per annum. Look how we do have a large population. We rank 12th in the world with a population of 112 million. This is the data that is obtained by Central Statistics Authority in 2019. The largest part of the population, that is 80%, is rural based, meaning that these are living in the rural areas. Like many other developing countries, Ethiopia has a youthful population where about 65% of the population is below 24 years of age. This shows that we have a high young age population in the country. So having young age population, if properly managed, is productive. The population is also unevenly distributed. There is no even distribution of population across the country because, as we have seen in the previous chapters, highlands are densely populated whereas lowlands are sparsely populated. Now, let us see the demographic measurements. In Ethiopia, fertility and mortality are the two principal determinants of population growth, as international migration is insignificant because many people are not going abroad. So we basically focus on the two, that is fertility and mortality. Some of the basic demographic measurements include: 1. Gross birth rate refers to the number of live births per 1,000 population. And this could be seen that crude birth rate is equal to total annual live births over total median population times 1,000. So the data that we will get as a result of this will tell us the crude birth rate. 2. General fertility rate refers to, or GFR, refers to the total number of live births per woman of reproductive age. Reproductive age meaning that from 15 to 49. Hence, GFR is equal to total annual live births over total women, that is from 15 to 49 times 1,000. So this will give us general fertility rate. 3. Total fertility rate, or TFR, refers to the total average number of children that a woman could have at the end of her reproductive period, meaning that up to 49, if the current age-specific fertility rate remains unchanged. 4. Crude days rate refers to the number of days per 1,000 population in a year. CDR is equal to total annual births over total million population times 1,000. 5. Infant mortality rate refers to the total number of deaths of infants per 1,000 live births. This is IMR is equal to total annual infant deaths over total live births times 1,000. So to infant refers to children that are dying before celebrating their first year. 6. Maternal mortality rate refers to the deaths of women in connection from pregnancy and birth complications per 100,000 live births, because women will die because of different reasons, especially during pregnancy because of hemorrhage and like that of unexpected conditions. So MMR is equal to total annual maternal deaths due to birth complications over total life births times 1,000. 7 is life expectancy at birth. Refers to the average number of years that a newly born baby is expected to live. It is used as a summary measure of the mortality experience of the whole population. 8. Natural rate of increase is the difference between crude birth rate and crude death rate expressed in percentage. That is NRI CBR minus CDR. Now let's see levels and trends of fertility and mortality rates in Ethiopia. Birth and death rates show significant spatial-temporal variations. Yes, there is change. That is to say, urban areas have a lower birth rate, okay? A lower birth rate when compared with that of rural areas, okay? So they do have lower birth and death rates compared to the rural areas, implying that living and health conditions are better and perhaps family planning program is gaining ground. The reason why birth rate and death rate is lower in urban areas is that, one, urban areas are advantageous because they do have many medical centers like hospitals, clinics, and health centers and so on and so forth. Moreover, they use family planning programs. So as a result of this, birth rate and death rate is lower when compared with that of rural areas. Looking at total fertility rate by region, in 2016, fertility rate was the lowest in Addis Ababa. This implies that, people are aware of family planning. Similarly, mortality rates are also showing a declining trend in urban centers. By 2011, infant mortality in all regions was lower than 1,000 except for Benishangul Gumuz. When it comes to life expectancy at birth, in Ethiopia increased from about 36.7 per years in the 1960s to 62.6 years in 2016. So you can see that since life expectancy is the average number of years that is expected for an individual to live, there is a change, okay? There is a change, there is an increase in life expectancy. Female life expectancy, that is 65.4 years, is about 4 years higher than male life expectancies, that is 61.2. This shows that females do have longer ages than males in the case of the country. Life expectancy at birth is greater for urban areas than for rural areas. It's true because it's associated with that of medical care and so on and so forth. Even among the 5 neighboring countries, as part of the developing world, Ethiopia's infant mortality rate is higher than Kenya, Eritrea, and Djibouti, giving Ethiopia the lowest life expectancy among these countries. Look how we do have a short life when compared with that of our neighboring countries. As opposed to declining rate, birth rates have remained high. Why? It remains, or why birth rates have remained high? This is because, one, there is little family planning practices and lack of population education. So a lot has to be done in Ethiopia, especially by educating the population to go for family planning. Two, lower status of women. Look, women do have a lower status and income generation in the country. Three, early marriage, particularly of females. Four, parents considering of children as assets. Giving more birth is considered as having huge asset in Ethiopia. Five, the relatively high infant and child mortality rates that trigger couples to have more births to compensate for the losses. So they think that when there is high loss or high death rate or mortality, they would like to compensate so that they give more births. Perhaps religious influences, because religion teaches that abortion and other practices are not allowed related with that of religious practices. The other one is some of the consequences of this rapid population growth under conditions of slowly growing economic include low per capita GNP, increased unemployment and underemployment, mounting social evils or ills such as destitution, begging, theft, prostitution. All these are the results of high population growth in developing countries. So you'll see that high level of destitution, poverty, begging, theft, and prostitution is to be seen in such countries. Continuous inflation that erodes purchasing power of the currency. There is high level of inflation. Shortage of cultivated land and food shortages. The higher the population, the greater the food demand. Hence, demand and supply cannot match. Overcrowding of infrastructure and social facilities, like that of social problems, housing problem, and increase in urban slums, shanty, squatter settlements, illegal settlements, where people will squat here and there because of high population growth. Environmental problems such as deforestation, soil erosion, loss of biodiversity, and that of population. All these are to be seen, as a result of high population growth. Now we have seen this demographic condition, and the third one is migration in Ethiopia and the world. Migration is an old and inevitable phenomenon, although human mobility has accelerated these days. Some of the multifaceted implications of migration are indicated hereunder. Migration yields an increased level of urbanization. Whenever there is a high level of urbanization, people tend to migrate from rural areas to urban centers in search of jobs, and so on and so forth. It enhances rural-urban linkages in creating an integrated economy. Where there are urbans and when there are rurals, there is integration or linkage of rural and urban economy, because urban products will go to rural areas and agricultural products will come to urban centers. So there is an integrated economy. Hence there is mobility, high mobility of people. Influences spatial population distribution, yes. Migration relatively influences human fertility and mortality patterns and levels, and affects age and sex composition of the population. It is a means of achieving economic efficiency. The reason why people are migrating, okay, the migration could be within the country or outside. So the reason why people are migrating is for economic efficiency. It can also be a cause and consequence of inequality and unequal development. It is regarded as a cause and consequence of diversity and the mechanisms of spreading cultures. Whenever there is migration, when people migrate from one area to other area, okay, they will go with their culture. So there is what we call it cultural diffusion. It diffuses from one area to the other area. It is a necessary condition for the creation and strengthening of a sense of nationhood and national unity. Cohesion. Okay? It creates a creative and open society to a new idea than a homogeneous group of people. So here heterogeneity will be observed because of migration. That's why some cities like Addis Ababa and Redwa are heterogeneous. There is a heterogeneous population in these areas. So migration in Ethiopia could be seen one, internal migration. Population movement in Ethiopia accelerated in the early 20th century. Voluntary individual rural out migration during the Derg regime was low for the following reasons. The 1976-77 land to the tiller granted land to the urban landless farmers, which in turn reduced their motivation for out migration. People, the peasants were not migrating because the proclamation, that is, land to the tiller. So the peasants or the tenants have got their own land, hence they were not interested to migrate to urban centers. The 1975 urban land nationalization, that these possessed landlords' rights, because the land was controlled by landlords and that land was transferred to the entire peasant population. The high level of urban unemployment and underdevelopment coupled with declining real incomes and growing poverty was a disincentive for potential migrants. Okay? For migrants to migrate, they will see what is there in that specific area. Is there a pull factor? Is there a pull factor? So when there is migration, these two factors are important, the push and the pull factors. However, landlessness of emerging rural use, drought and rainfall unreliability was seen, then hence internal migration in Ethiopia is therefore among the highest in Africa. So whenever there is, because Ethiopian agriculture is predominantly based on rainfall. So when there is no rainfall, the peasants will start to migrate from rural to urban centers, which we call it internal migration within the country. The second one, international migration. Then independence struggle of Eritrea from 1961 to 1991 that led to violent clashes in the north, and the period of Red Terror between 1976 to 79 generated massive immigration from Ethiopia. Two things. One, because of the conflict between Ethiopia and Eritrea, which lasted for about 30 years, forced people to migrate. Two, during the Derg period, there was a period of what we call Red Terror. It was a period where there was summary execution. That is, death penalty without formal procedure was to be conducted in Ethiopia. That's why, especially the youth started to migrate to other countries. Okay? Today, Ethiopia could be considered as one of the countries that has a large number of immigrants overseas. Many in North America, Europe, Scandinavian countries, and so on and so forth. Hence, Ethiopia's diaspora estimated to be about 4 million. 4 million. is also considered one of the largest of all African countries. The causes of cross-border migration include: 1. Lack of employment and livelihood opportunities, and negative attitudes attached with low-paying and informal job and poor work ethics amongst the youth. We have a very poor work ethics. Industriousness is poor in Ethiopia. Unemployment is high in Ethiopia. All these are negative attitudes that force, especially the youth, to migrate. 2. Rural underemployment and lack of resources, especially in rural areas because of land fragmentation. 3. Unfavorable political context and insecurity, civil war and political turmoil that is seen in the country, because there was a civil war in the country for so many years, for about 30 years. 4. Misinformation and false promises by brokers or traffickers, so that they mislead Ethiopians, hence they will go abroad. 5. Emergence of culture of migration and migration network is a very strong migration network has been created. 6. Demand side factors of migration: shortage of labor and low paying, informal and perilous jobs. 7. International Labour Organization ILO in 2016 identified the following migration source areas of Ethiopia with high and growing incidence of immigration. These are many of the people migrate from the north and south coast area, from Shashamene, Western Arsi and Bali area, from Jimma, Western Ethiopia area, from Mekelle or Tigray area. As a major destination country, Ethiopia hosts the second largest number of refugees in Ethiopia. On the contrary, there are so many migrants from Ethiopia that will go abroad, but on the contrary, Ethiopia hosts many refugees from abroad, like from Sudan and the like. Now, let's see the population distribution in Ethiopia. Population distribution refers to the arrangement of people over space. The distribution of population in Ethiopia is very uneven as a result of physical and human factors operating together. Why uneven? Because of these two factors. The most important physical factors that affect population distribution include climate. People need the area which has a very favorable condition for their life. They also opt for soil type, vegetation, drainage, and so they do consider these areas. The type of economic activity, urbanization, industrialized, and the demographic variables are important human influences. This influences people to settle. Measure of population distribution, population density. Population density refers to the number of population per unit area. There are several ways of expressing population density. Several ways. A. Crude density. Alright. Crude density is found by dividing total population to total area. Population to total area will give us crude density. It does not show variations in population distribution within a given area. Nationalities and also southern nationalities, people, region, SNNPR, is the administrative areas with the largest population density. That is 173 people per square kilometer. Followed by the Amhara region. So there is a densely populated area in here. 2. Physiological density is a ratio between total population and arable part of the country. Arable part is a part of land which is suitable for agriculture. 3. Agricultural density is a kind of density which takes only agricultural population as a numerator and cultivated land as a denominator. It is also called rural density or agricultural density. Rural population per square kilometer of cropland is highest for Somali area and Gambella. The latter ratio is due to the smaller proportion of land that is appropriate for agriculture relative to the large land masses and small population. Okay, they do have a large land mass, whereas the number of people is very small. So the smallest agricultural density lies in Benishangul 3.8, Amhara 5, Oromia 5.6, and Tigray with that of 5.6. So what are the factors affecting population distribution in Ethiopia? Okay, why are some areas densely populated? Why are some areas sparsely populated? One, physical factors. The most important physical factors that affect distribution of population in Ethiopia include climate, mainly rainfall and temperature, soil and vegetation. The other physical factors include drainage and slope. High temperature in combination with low and irregular rainfall diminish habitability, the lowlands of Ethiopia. Steep slopes and surface ruggedness play their own part because people will never settle in steep slopes and rugged topography. Lowlands are characterized by a scarcity of rainfall, high temperature, and poor vegetation and soil polish. Hence, the population density is very low. Human factors is the second one. The historical pattern of population movement. After the decline of the Aksumite Empire, the southward movement of the Tigray, Amhara, Agau, and Gurage populations starting from the 17th century. One from the north and the other from the south offer a significant explanation of denser population distribution in and around the central highlands. That's why when we learn about highlands of Ethiopia, the highlands of Ethiopia are densely populated because of these factors. Third, economic activities. Types of productive activity strongly influence the carrying capacity of the land. Which kind of activity? Where? The arid and semi-arid lowlands of Ethiopia that are inhabited by pastoralists. Pastoralists will live in lowland areas, in arid areas. Hence, with pastoral herding, population densities are extremely low. If you have seen the Afar, okay, the Afars, they are pastoralists. So their density is very low. Compared to areas of pastoral herding, cultivated lands have greater carrying capacity. The development of commercial farms in some parts of Ethiopia, like the Awash Valley, is also a significant factor in causing population movements and changes in the population concentration. For example, if you are to go to the Afar region around Hausa, okay, around Dupti, there is high population concentration. This is because of irrigation system. There is a chance of employment in that area. Socio-cultural aspects of Ethiopian population. One, education. High level of education correlates with higher incomes, better health, longer lifespan, and lower mortality. Educated people do have these characteristics. Hence, human capital development is a cause and consequence of development. That's why we need to work on human capital development. Gambella and Addis Ababa have a very high, okay, they have a very high GR goes over 140%. 140%. In Addis Ababa, more females are attending schools than males. Lower female participation is found in Somalia and Harari region where females are not allowed to go to schools. Second is health. The government of Ethiopia has been investing heavily in health system. Some of the root causes of the poor health status of the population of Ethiopia include 1. Lack of access to clean water. 2. Diseases related to beliefs. 3. Lack of adequate nutrition. 4. Diseases related to some issues associated with that of unnecessary beliefs like early marriage, FGM, female genital mutilation, and so on and so forth. And 5. Lack of health services. The healthcare infrastructure of the country had suffered from underfunding. The major killer diseases accounting for about 3/4 of all diseases include prenatal maternal conditions, acute respiratory infection, malaria, nutritional deficiency for children under 5 years, diarrhea, HIV/AIDS, and tuberculosis. All these are fatal. So they affect the health sector of the country. Despite significant improvements, Ethiopia's health situation is still at a staggering situation. Of course, there is high change. The country adopts a strategy to train the health extension workers, or what we call is the health extension program, HEP, and midwives, as well as scaling up family planning. Many midwives, we were in midwifery, graduates are helping the people, especially as to how to fight these fatal diseases. There are variations among the regions of Ethiopia in population per hospital and per hospital bed. There could be many people with no chance of seeing a doctor or having an access to hospital bed even if they wished to have, because the hospitals that we have in the country are very few. Hence, many people will not have the opportunity to go to hospitals and be treated by doctors. The other issue related with that of population is language families and languages of Ethiopia. We know that Ethiopia is a country where about 80 languages are spoken. Afan Oromo and Amharic were the major mother tongues in the country. The Ethiopian languages belong to two super families, Afro-Asiatic and Nilo-Sahara. Most Ethiopian languages belong to the Afro-Asiatic super family. Afro-Asiatic family is divided into 3 families, namely Semitic, Cushitic, and that of Omotic. Cushitic languages are predominantly spoken in central, southern, eastern, and northeastern parts of Ethiopia, mainly in Afar, Oromo, and Somali regional status. So it's dominant in these areas, what we call it under the Afro-Asiatic, the Cushitic language. It has the largest number of speakers and the widest spatial coverage. This family of language consists of many individual languages such as Orominya, Somalinya, Sidaminya, Afarinya, Kampadinya, Hadinya, Alawinya, Gideonya, and others. All these are to be found within Cushitic family. Semitic. The Semitic languages are spoken in northern, central, and eastern part of Ethiopia, particularly in the regional states of Tigray, Amhara, Harari, and north southern nationalists and peoples regional states. Some of the Semitic languages include Amharinya, Tigrinya, languages Guraginya, Siltinya, Adarinya, and that of Argobinya. All these are within the Semitic group. When it comes to Omotic family, these languages are predominantly spoken in south, central, and southwestern parts of Ethiopia, mainly between the lakes of southern Rift Valley and the Omo River area. Walaitinya, Gamonya, Kulonya, Kavinya, and Kontinya are some of the languages in this family. The second group is Nilo-Saharan, are spoken in the western lowlands of the Ethiopian along the border with Sudan in Gambela and Benishangul Gumuz regional states. These languages are spoken by small numbers of people. The super family include Kunaminya, Bejinya, Gumzinya, Monya, Kawaminya, Nuerinya, Anyokinya, and others. All these are to be spoken in these areas, and we call it the Nilo-Saharan language group. Now let's go for settlement types and patterns of Ethiopia. Types of settlement. Settlements are places that are inhabited by people more or less on a permanent basis. Okay? Sedentary. As a distinct for example from camps, and where people carry out a variety of activities such as agriculture, manufacturing, and commerce. If people are to settle in one area and go for these economic activities, they do have a settlement. Settlements are divided into two, namely rural and urban. On the basis of the dominant economic activity, population densities, and availability of socio-economic and infrastructure facilities as well. Rural settlement, the vast majority of the Ethiopian population still lives in rural settlements. Rural settlements can be temporary or permanent. Some are temporary and others are permanent. Temporary or mobile settlements. The lowlands are characterized by pastoral herding and mobile settlements searching for new sites for water and pasture for their livestock. So they move from area to area. What we call it a mobile settlement, temporary. The major problem often mentioned about mobile settlements is that of providing social services like clean water, they don't have, schools, hospitals, electricity, etc. to the people. This is unattainable because they are moving from one place to the other. On the other hand, permanent settlements are considered as permanent if there are no frequent changes in their locations. Most Ethiopian rural highland settlements where crop cultivation is practiced are permanent. Permanent settlements are of two types. One of them is scattered, while the other one is known as grouped, clustered, or neglected. In some areas, we'll see peasants living in a scattered way, whereas in some areas, we'll see the peasants in group or cluster form. Dispersed settlements, homesteads are separated by relatively long distances. Group settlements, on the other hand, are characterized by concentration of large number of homesteads and that of households. Many households will live together in clustered form. Urban settlements and urbanization in Ethiopia. Urbanization refers to the increase in the percentage of population living in urban areas. Urbanization is crucial to sustain the pace of economic development and improve the quality of life for both rural and urban populations. Linkage between urban and rural areas could foster efficiency of value chains in agro-industry, where agricultural products will go to urban areas and industrial products will go to rural areas. If the rapid urbanization is not properly managed, it is presumed to bring with it a number of development challenges such as unemployment. Hence, we need to work on rural-urban migration, on housing strategies. Housing shortages are to be seen in urban centers and informal settlements, infrastructure and service shortages, poverty and social distress, social evils. All these are to be seen if urban centers are not properly managed. The major criteria to classify settlements as urban in Ethiopia. A certain area is to be said urban in Ethiopia if 1. There is a minimum of 2,000 people. 2. 2/3 of the population are engaged in non-agricultural activities. 3. Chartered municipality. Whenever there is a chartered municipality. 4. The presence of social services and amenities. If these are to be fulfilled, that area is said to be an urban area. Now let's have a look on an overview of the history of urbanization in Ethiopia. The only prominent urban centers were Aksum, Lalibela, and Gondar in ancient times. Modern urbanization in Ethiopia is associated with the establishment of Addis Ababa as a capital by Emperor Menelik II in the late 19th century. Factors that contribute to the growing and permanency of Addis Ababa as a capital city that are indicated as follows. 1. The introduction of the fast growing Australian eucalyptus tree, which satisfied the fuel wood needed the ever growing urban population. But we know that this eucalyptus tree came from Australia during the period of Emperor Menelik II. Water supplies improved due to the introduction of wells and reservoirs in Addis Ababa. The introduction of modern schools like Menelik School, hospitals and health center, hotels, cafes, bars, bakeries, and so on and so forth. The construction of roads that radiate from Addis Ababa, because the roads were radiating from Addis Ababa to the different parts of Ethiopia. The Italian occupation had also intensified the establishment of small-scale industries and institutions in urban centers. Now today, Addis Ababa is not only the capital of Ethiopia, it is also the diplomatic capital of Africa. Compared to other countries, Ethiopia is the least urbanized country even by African standards. We cannot compare it Addis Ababa with that of Cairo and the like. Ethiopia is regarded as a vast urban desert. Vast urban desert. The country's low level of urbanization can be attributed to the self-sufficiency of agriculture, which reinforced rural peasant life, low level of industrialization, because whenever there are urban centers, industrialization will flourish, lack of employment and housing shortage, political instability, ethnic conflict, and social unrest, all these are to be seen in Ethiopia. Drivers of and opportunities for more urbanization in Ethiopia. Urbanization is proceeding at a much faster rate in Ethiopia. Now, rural centers are being changed into urban centers. So we can say that there is high level of urbanization. Urban population is growing at about 5% a year, primarily driven by migration to urban areas. Some of the conditions which have been contributing to expansion of urban areas are the establishment of Addis Ababa as a center of expansion and its permanency, the construction of Ethio-Djibouti railway line, along which many stations have developed into important towns, the 5-year Italian occupation, which has contributed to road building because the Italians had constructed many roads during their stay for about 5 years. Political decentralization and the provision of administrative status of sound urban settlements, proximity to existing cities and main transportation corridors, high population density and growth rates in the population in the populous highlands, the presence of new and large commercial farms, mining areas, and agro-industries such as sugar factories, large infrastructure investments such as airports and highways, opening of universities that support entrepreneurial activity, tourism assets and attractions such as parks, resort centers, development of border towns with strengthened inter-country trade. All these are factors okay, that contribute to the development of urban centers. When we see the distribution of urban centers in Ethiopia, the distribution of urban centers in Ethiopia shows considerably spatial variation. The Ministry of Urban Development and Construction identified the following hierarchy of urban centers. 1. The Addis Ababa Metropolitan Cluster, including Addis Ababa, which includes Addis Ababa and its surrounding towns, and Adama and its surrounding town. Secondary city cluster consists of Lake Tana urban cluster, which includes Bahar Dar, Gondar, Debre Tabor, Debre Marcos. South Rift Valley urban cluster, Hawassa, Shashamene, Dilla. East urban cluster, Dredoa, Harar, Jijiga. And Mekelle urban center includes Mekelle, Adigrat, and that of Shire and Aksum. Desi Kombolcha urban cluster, Jimma urban cluster, which includes Jimma, Agaro, Mizan, Tepi, Gambela. The third one, tertiary urban clusters include Nakamte urban cluster, Nakate, Dambidolo, Gimpi, Metu, Asosa. Gode, Kabridahar network, Samara, Mille, Asaita Oasis City network. Okay. Like most developing countries, Ethiopia's urban population is concentrated in one primate city. That is what we call it Addis Ababa. Growth rates of urban centers. Ethiopia's towns are characterized by a wide range of growth rates that could be classified into one of the following three broad categories. These categories composed of towns that grow at a rate which is less than the rate of natural increase. Towns such as Holeta, Harar, and Gore have been indicated to grow slowly in the recent past. Fast-growing towns. All towns with growth rates of greater than the natural rate of increase make up this group. These towns pull large number of people from the declining or slowly growing towns, and they grow faster. Hence, urbanization will have grown in these areas. That's all about chapter